So the growth continuum for me is very much about self and building yourself up and finding your way, so to speak. And then, challenging you with people and program and situations so that you can develop the confidence you need. I think what's different for a job like mine is the interaction with kids. So I think getting to enjoy them in their natural setting and all their talents and all the things they do, good and bad, are a pretty exciting part of the job. I think the dynamic nature of the work, when you're working in education, I think there are lots of changes that come your way. The last 2 years would be full of them. So I think it's pretty dynamic in its nature. And I think it's dynamic also in the sense that, I deal with kids and I deal with teachers and I deal with alumni and I deal with the community. So that's kind of fun. And then I think being rooted in education, a big part of the job is to kind of model being a lifelong learner. And I think those things are important to me and probably the things about the job that, give me the most joy or maybe give me an opportunity to be successful. Two different journeys, right? So I would have started in 1998 as a teacher, and I would have started in 2016 as a head of school. So, in 1998, when I joined this school, it was my second independent school. I really liked it. I was pretty marveled at the fact that something like this existed in Atlantic Canada. I was taken by some of the traditions. I was taken by the fact that the kids were great. I was taken by the fact that there was such robust programming and interest in the kids. And then, of course, I was a math teacher. So I was, committed to making sure that we delivered a good program and prepared our kids for university. When you switch off to be the head, so this is my 6th year as head, I think it's the community. I think it's just the nature of a school like ours. So we've been around for 145 years. So there's lots of history and tradition and heritage that are really neat. There's people that have gone to this school for a long, long time. So anytime you can spend time with them and hear their stories, it gives you a different perspective from a different time. Like, we heard from people who experienced the Spanish flu. Like, that's 100 years ago. And we had pictures sent in, and it could have been family members. I don't know if I'm getting that story straight, but we had pictures sent in where girls from our school were wearing masks in 1918. So things like that are really cool. The other thing about our school is it's interesting when you're in the East, and Toronto's not the East. I'm not sure where you are, but when you're in Atlantic Canada, there's this drive to be better. We don't have a lot of schools like ours in Atlantic Canada with boarding and all the different components. So being part of an organization of schools across Canada is really important to us. We want to make sure that we're a flagship, that we do a really good job for this part of the country. And that's really exciting too. So I think it kind of leads into, it kind of hooks back to the lifelong learning and continuous improvement. And also for people just to learn a little bit more about Atlantic Canadians. I think it's a pretty special part of the country. It's funny. So we've been in school most of the 2 years. So it's been a little different than other parts of country. And it is a really typical basic question, but at the same time, no 2 days are the same, it seems. So, yesterday we literally had a roof blow off one of our buildings in a windstorm. So, today has obviously been different. So I certainly want to keep this appointment. But a typical day would be, I will arrive right here to my office at about 7:45. We have chapel every day at 8:15. So all of our kids gather in chapel. And it's been a little different the past couple of years. But right now, half of our kids are in chapel, half of our kids are in the theater. And then I just have a number of meetings, internal, external. Internal could be anything from, yesterday I had to meet with the grade 7 class. I had a leadership team meeting. I had to meet with the maintenance team. So that could be internal things. External could be, I had a board committee meeting yesterday. I had to meet with the town because of the issues with our building. So there's a whole host of things that can kind of fill up my day. And I think when you're in a position like I am in this leadership role in this school, you have to be really careful that you don't get stuck in this beautiful office. It's a beautiful space, but the real joy is out there in the classroom and on the stage and on the fields. And you know, you have to make an effort every day to get out there, because as soon as you're out there, you're just filled with life, because you know, the kids give us our energy. So I think that's a pretty important. That's not a complaint about what I'm doing. I just like the interaction with kids is important to me. I think it has to be one of growth and development, and some of the following questions ask about the attributes of a kid and ask about our culture and things like that. And I think growth and development is huge. And I think you know, I think all kids are at different stages when they arrive. So you need to make sure you create that environment, create that support so that they're comfortable and they're safe. And then I think you have to challenge them, because you need them to grow and develop, and it happens at different stages. So that's a really important part for me. And I feel like we're starting to get success when those kids start to take leadership, take on leadership responsibilities, or start to do things for the broader community, or start to do things outside of the walls of our school. So for me, it's I think our vision captures it really well by saying we'll bring out the best in every student by giving them the skills, confidence, and passion they need to chart their own path and make a significant contribution to the world around them. So the growth continuum for me is very much about self and building yourself up and finding your way, so to speak. And then, you know, challenging you with people and program and situations so that you can develop the confidence you need, you know, to lead in some aspect. And that might be by setting a good example. It might be taking responsibility in a certain area. And then hopefully at some point it leads to giving back through service and things of that nature. So yeah, I'd say it's really low, but it's not low enough. Like this year, we'll lose a French teacher that we've had for about 15 years, and that stings, right? Really good teacher, really good coach, really good leader, and nothing we could have did differently, really. It's just life circumstances that have come upon him. But that's hard. But I'd say we have 106 employees, and you know, turnover would be very low each year. I would think, you know, less than 5%. So we don't deal with it a whole lot, but we're small enough. So if I talk about my 106 employees, about half of them are on the teaching side. So there'd be about 50 that directly influence teaching and learning. And anytime you lose one of those, it's hard. So we work really hard to keep our teachers and staff as long as we can. You want to invest in them so that they stay, but you know, it's inevitable. And I think the last 2 years have made that more clear to people. So we've had to be really flexible to make sure that we could support our employees and families. But I think lots of people have thought about what they want to do for the next 5, 10, 15 years during this time. And there's some people making decisions to be together. There's people making decisions to go home, wherever that might be. So there's, you know, sometimes you're just a part of the process, and ultimately you don't have a whole lot of influence over how that happens. So I feel like our employees are treated really well. I feel like they work really hard and they're really good and committed, dedicated. And then just sometimes for life reasons, they go in a different direction. I think that's okay, but the turnover is low. Yeah, I mean, when you talk about all those words, vision, mission, all those things, values are probably most important. And our values are character, courage, creativity, and community. And I would hope that there's examples of them all over the school. Like I would hope there's kids in middle school. I'd hope there's kids in grade 9, 10, 11. I hope there's people on our maintenance staff. I hope there's parents. I hope there's people on the leadership team. I hope there's teachers. So I would expect those characteristics from anyone on our team. I think everybody in our school, I mean, if you ask somebody to quote verbatim your vision or mission, I don't know if they can do it, but we talk about our values all the time. So there'd be very few people in our organization and in our community with parents and the like that wouldn't know character, courage, creativity, and community. And not only know them, but also know that it's an expectation of anyone in our community to live those things. And yeah, I think there's tons of examples of those. I don't think you'd be reaching very hard. I don't think a week could go by in chapel where I wouldn't talk about character, courage, creativity, and community. I just don't think it would happen, or at least one of them. And I think everybody would know what they are. Yeah, that's a great question, because we've been around for 145 years. So I think we're constantly looking for ways to engage our alumni in our school, right? And there's different groups of alumni. So people who've graduated in the last 5 or 10 years, we work really hard through grade 11 and 12 to get them connected to the school so that we don't lose track of them. But kids go through a real evolution during that time, right? You leave your university, you leave your high school, you go off to university, you maybe go to another university. I mean, there's about 10 years where you're trying to get to your I don't know, your first steady job, let's say. And it just takes a little time to sort through those things, but we're always looking for ways to get alumni involved. We have lots of alumni on our board. We have a number of events at the school, and we also have events across the country, alumni gatherings, so we get them involved there. We have a mentoring program that involves mostly alumni. We have teams that would travel around the country playing, and we'll always let alumni in different cities know, and they'll show up for hockey games or basketball games or whatever the like. And that's really what it's all about for us. I mean, we have to make connections between our alumni and our kids. So alumni will come see me because I organize an event, but they really want to be engaged with the kids. And I have to create opportunities for that to happen. So anytime we have board gatherings here or we have events here, we're always going to try to expand that time a little bit so that we can get them involved with kids. It's a really important part of a school like ours. I mean, we're a boarding school. It's around for 145 years. So connections between your alumni, and also the benefit that the alumni can have for your grade 12s, right? Your grade 11s and grade 12s. So that's why the mentoring program is so important, because if you can involve somebody who's in that same discipline, who's had great success, who has a network of people, like that one lunch or that one phone call can like get you on your way. And lots of people, it's really funny. I don't know what your experience is with other schools, but lots of people don't realize that maybe the biggest benefit they get of coming to a school like ours is the network of people that could potentially help you, right? And yeah, I think the connection between alum and our current students is really important. I think there's a wide variety, but there's some characteristics. And the first two kind of go together. So ability and motivated. I don't think ability is the right word. Probably motivated is the right word. So there would be some kids. I mean, if you don't have a certain ability, it'd be difficult to come to a school like ours. I mean, we have the IB program. We have a pretty rigorous academic program. So there needs to be some basic ability. The word I prefer to use is motivated, because I think all kinds of kids have all kinds of ability, and some of them just don't know it yet. But if you can put them in the right environment and you can give them the right support, I think kids can rise to the challenge you set for them. So motivated is a word. All of the IB literature always use the word motivated, and I always kind of like that, because I think it's hard to assess ability, because are you really getting somebody meeting their true potential? Like, you can have two kids side by side. So the word ability doesn't work for me, but motivated works, because you can see motivated. There's lots of characteristics there. The other thing about our school is you need to be willing to participate. So if you're going to come to a small school like ours, we're 300 kids. We have a mandatory co-curricular program every day. You need to be involved. If you're going to sit in a classroom with 15 kids and you're not going to participate, you're not going to get the most from it. If you're going to go off to your sports and co-curriculars and you're not going to participate, you're not going to get anything from it. If you're going to be in a boarding residence and you're not going to try to attend every single event, it's really difficult. So I think participation and willingness is a huge, huge part. And that's really hard if you can imagine that 14, 15-year-old boarder who's arrived, who's just trying to find their way, right? So I think that's a really important part. And then at this school, I think it needs to be growth oriented. If you're not interested in getting better, it's not the right place to come, because that is the environment, that is the language, that is the motivation. And if you're not interested, that's not going to work. And I would tell parents that straight up. I've been in lots of interviews where I've said, listen, you might want to wait. I don't think now is the right time. I don't think they're ready. And I don't know if they're not ready because they don't want to do it, or I don't know if they're not ready because they don't think they're able, or I don't know if they're not ready because you didn't prepare them, but I don't think they're ready. So, it's just not the right time. I mean, we have some pretty good wait lists on the day side and in different parts of the school. So if you're not a good fit, you're not a good fit. But I don't think fit should ever come down to just grades. Like lots of university programs, the top grades get in and that's it. And I don't ever want to be that school. I'm okay with somebody who struggles academically, so long as they're motivated and willing to work really hard and there's good support at home. So I think there's lots of answers to a question like that, but the motivation, the willingness to participate, and the growth mindset, I think, is, they're kind of deal breakers. Please don't quote me on that, but they're important aspects of success, let's say. And I think it's a kid that's not interested. Like early in my career, we would have kids here who shouldn't have been here, and it was just because they didn't want to be. And they might not want to be for all kinds of reasons, right? I mean, maybe their parents forced them to come, or maybe they're not ready. So it's that kid that's just, you can't move a mountain. You have to have a little bit of help there. Yeah, there's certainly tradition and pride, but if I were going to talk about culture, I'd probably talk about inclusivity. I'd probably talk about awareness. I'd probably talk about, motivated, growth-oriented, hardworking. I think another really important part of our culture is adaptive or nimble. Like, I think we're a small enough school that we can pivot quickly. And there's been lots of examples of that over the last couple of years. But I think that's an advantage of a small school. I think you're pretty nimble, which maybe is not one that people have described to you before. I also think friendly and supportive, empathetic. I think they're really important characteristics of a community. A culture is the term used, sorry. Yeah, I think it's positive, open. I think we're pretty aligned. I think we do a pretty good job communicating with our parents. I think they feel pretty aware of what's happening. And I think it's student focused. I think, this is a school for kids. And if parents have some input about what's happening to their kids, that's really important. And I mean, I'm going to send out a survey tomorrow to parents, just getting feedback on how the year's gone, and programming and boarding and advisor programs and all those things. I think it's really important. So we're pretty blessed. I think we have a really good parent group, and I don't want you to quote this either, but I have lots of colleagues in Ontario and BC, and it can be a pretty litigious world sometimes. And sometimes our jobs get really, really complicated. And I think that's more so in the bigger centers than it maybe is in Atlantic Canada. We deal with it more than we ever did before, for sure. But I think we're pretty blessed that our parents are pretty proud of the school that we have here, and I think they feel like we're pretty focused on the kids and getting better all the time, and that generally works for them. I think you need to gather some facts. I wrote talk to kids, but it could be talk to parents or community members, whomever it is. I think the relationship needs to be really important there. So you need to be focused on restoring that relationship if something's been broken. If it's between two kids, I think you need to focus on restoring the relationship between them. I think you need to reiterate and be aware of your community standards. We would share those with our entire community every year. About 4 or 5 years ago, we added parents signing off on those standards. I need people to know what they are. So when there's conversations about them, I mean, we're talking a common language, or at least something that they acknowledge that they read through and knew. I think that's really important. I think, if there's consequences, I think they need to be appropriate. I think it needs to be progressive. I think it needs to be well communicated. And then probably the most important part is the communication of it. And it needs to be a communication to the people involved. So let's say it's two kids, and it also needs to be communications to parents. If it were a conflict with someone in the community, I mean, it needs to be communicated back to them. So I think you just need information. Earlier in my career, I would get excited about what I heard, and then I learned as I get older, and this shouldn't mean that I'm too old or I'm too pessimistic, but you need to get facts. And you don't always have them the first time you've heard them. And it doesn't matter if it comes from a mom or a teacher or a student, doesn't matter who it comes from. You need to try to get the facts, and you can usually get them. And when you have them, they kind of align with your standards or they don't. It's then just a matter of treating people well, making clear what it is you're trying to do, and communicating it to people. Like, some of the best experiences I've ever had have been really bad situations with kids and families where, you just had to kind of take it down to the facts, and you had to help them understand what they did and help them understand what they can do to make it better. And in some cases, it can be life-changing for kids. Like, that's a really worthwhile exercise. Conflict is not a horrible thing. Conflict in the Ukraine right now is a horrible thing, but conflict in your classroom or on your campus it's just part of life. Yeah, it's probably going back a little bit to the culture stuff, but open and accepting, I think, would be there. Community oriented, empathetic, motivated, growth oriented, proud. Like, I think a lot of those same words would probably be true here as well. Yeah, we're pretty fortunate. So, we have a fairly significant footprint in our town. So we'd be one of the biggest businesses in our town. We're in a pretty small town. So we have a gym, and we have a rink, and we have squash courts, and we have a theater, and we have a dining hall, and lots of things that are used by the community. So I think that's always been very good to us. I think we are very proud to be part of the community of Rothesay. And it's important to us that they're proud of us as well. And we do everything we can for our community. So, I mean, one of the biggest providers of ice for minor hockey in the area is our rink, for example. We're always going to do things. I mean, we have walking trails on our property where people come up and they'll walk the trails. If there's volunteering opportunities, like, we would send kids regularly to nursing homes, to shelters uptown for homeless people. We're going to get around causes. Almost all of our fundraisers go to the Teen Resource Center, which is for homeless youth. So our position in the community is really, really important. And I think it goes back to our vision. We have a responsibility to the broader community, and it's just some people take a little longer till they get there. But everybody has a responsibility to kind of give back and make the area around us better. I think a rising tide kind of pushes up all ships, and that's true in a relationship with your town as well. Yeah, fit is everything, if you ask me that. I think you need to do some research on your school. I think you need to know about the academic program. I think you need to know the expectations beyond academics. If you're considering boarding, think you need to know about boarding. It'd be nice to know about some of the programs. Some people are interested in academics, some people are interested in sports, but what about inclusivity? What about how open you are to, different types of kids? What about Jedi type things? Like, do you know some of the things happening in the school so that you can better understand kind of the way the school thinks and the way the school operates and the way the school feels? And it's really hard to do those things online. So I think a secondary part is you really have to get to your school. You have to do the best you can. Lots of schools like ours and others have 3D virtual tours, and there's lots of testimonials and presentations from people. So you can get a real sense for the school. And in some cases, that has to be enough, especially for international kids and families. But you need to try to get there. When you walk around a school for a couple of hours, you get a sense, first person you meet, you get a sense for what that school is like. And if you attend any kind of function, like, it's just important to get in and just see it in operation. I think it's always a shame for me when kids come in the summer for tours of the school when school's not in session, because it's not the same. And I'll tell every single parent that comes through our door, after your visit, we're going to get together, we'll answer some questions, and you need a little soak time. Like, you need to, like, that drive home is huge. Like, that potential student is going to have something to say. And it could be, I absolutely loved it. And it could be, I absolutely hated it. And that's all that matters. If it's all about them, they're the person who has to go on this journey. It's not the parents or the grandparents. So it has to be a great fit. And I think when it is a great fit, even then it might not work. But the potential for it to work is much better. I think all of our schools, we're very fortunate to have some wonderful independent schools in our country with lots of great staff and people and programs. And it's just fit. You have to find the right one. Is it an urban school? Is it a rural school? Is it a big school? Is it a small school? Is it a day school? Is it a boarding school? Do you want that enhanced academic curriculum? Do you not? Do you need a theater program? It's all of those things, and every kid is different.
For more information about this school, you can visit their profile at ourkids.net.